This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy: How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com. Thank you, and may God bless you. Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, federal child trafficking pipeline exposed. With us this evening, Tara Lee Rodas, an HHS whistleblower. Tara, welcome back to the show.
Jamie, it's just an honor to be here with you this evening and all of your listeners. I just thank you so much for continuing to shine a light on what we know is government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. So thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Tara. I'm investigating this issue quite a bit with so many other issues, keeping an eye on everything that you're doing. Thank you so much. It looks like wherever we look today, something very dark and evil is going on. And last time you were on, you opened our eyes to a lot of things, revealed a lot of things. There's 85,000 children missing at the border. The federal government is complicit and involved. And you've got quite a few updates. We've got quite a bit to discuss, but let me just hand it over to you for you to introduce the issue and to give us the updates that are happening.
Sure. So there have been several hearings on Capitol Hill where none of the administration at HHS is able to give account for where these children are, nor are they able to give account for what's actually happening with the children who are calling into a hotline. There are children calling a helpline. Thousands of them have called this helpline to say, please help me. I'm being abused, neglected, or trafficked. And no one in the administration has any answer. These are horrible revelations that so many tens of thousands of children are gone. Now, there are also a few bright spots. And since I last talked to you, several other whistleblowers have come forward. Brave, amazing heroes, Carlos Ariano, Myra Moreno, and Deborah White. And there's a brand new video that just dropped about 2 weeks ago, and it's called "Where Did the Children Go?" by America's Future. And so I want to make sure that that your listeners know that if they go to americasfuture.net, they can actually see this video, "Where Did the Children Go?" And it is the four of us talking about new and disturbing revelations in this program. So I would definitely encourage your listeners to do that. And then HHS, instead of trying to fix the problem, if you can imagine right now, they are proposing a rule change that would make it easier to traffic these children. And so we definitely oppose this rule change. And if your listeners want to get involved and they want to stop child trafficking, I have a link that at Truth Trench, they can actually go and fill out their opposition to this rule change. So I want to make sure that I can drop that in the chat and make sure that your folks know that they can go in there. And the DHS whistleblower actually filled out the responses, and all you have to do is copy and paste. So, and your voice, all the voices can be heard on Capitol Hill, and that's what we're hoping.
Thank you so much, Tara. I come from a country, during the Stalin Era, there were still many citizens of the Soviet Union who were saying, all these bad things going on, but when Stalin finds out, everything will be set right when Stalin finds out. And I often think of that because from everything that I've experienced and that I've studied, when I study this issue. And oh, Biden administration, oh, it's involved in trafficking children and giving children to pedophiles and rapists and child traffickers. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the government's involved. The Democratic leftist government is involved. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's very hard to be shocked in the confrontation with evil in this world. But a lot of people still are very willfully blind to a lot of things going on. But you're unveiling all of this. And so I was watching the Muckraker undercover report. Yes. And what an organization that they are. And wow, what a video. And I was just thinking of something here. So in that video, and we hope that we'll give information to our viewers, so everybody should watch it. But in that video, there's a gentleman that's, approaching these sponsors that are taking these children to very safe places, but they've all got these masks on. And when he's asking them, hey, what's going on? They're acting as if they're like mafiosa. Like, you would think that if you're part of the government helping children to go to nice places, that if somebody wants to talk to you, that you would just stop and very nicely explain, that you're doing something very beautiful and very kind and you're putting children in a safe place. But these people, they've got these masks on and they're acting like they're these mafiosa drug cartels that are trying to move these drugs. Like, even the way that they're acting, the way that they don't want to answer questions, it's absurdly horrifying, isn't it?
Yes, Jamie, it is. And a big shout out to Muckraker and Anthony for catching on film the part of the delivery system of the children. So yeah. Anthony was able to film at an airport in Texas these mafioso-like government gangsters, right? They're all NGOs and contractors who are moving the children. And if you watch that video, that's right. I do believe I sent you that link as well. If you would provide that to your people, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
What is horrifying is if you watch the children as Anthony's trying to speak with them, they are so scared and they keep looking at the transportation person, their escort, and the escort's giving them the evil eye, and then the child is too afraid to speak. And
you would think, like, Tara, sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to get this. You would think if these were very good, beautiful people saving children, that the children would even kind of have a sigh of relief that they're in good hands, and they just look terrified and something is wrong. These are supposed to be rescuers. I'm so sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, this is a very important thing to bring to light. You're right. If the children were not scared, and they're scared because they don't know where they're going and they don't know who they're going to. And the government needs to admit that's what's happening. The children were telling us that they don't know who they're going to. The children, if you watch the America's Future video, Where Did the Children Go? You will hear Carlos Ariana say how the kids were crying and begging, please, please, please don't make me go. They woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning today and they're sending me to somebody I don't know. I've never even talked to this person by Facebook, please.
Tara, you would think, let's say we were hired to do this, you and I, right? Tara, isn't the first thing to do is spend some time with the child, give a lot of love, give a lot of comfort, give a lot of feeling of safety, and create an atmosphere where there's trust, and at least that they're a little bit, that the fear has gone down and they feel that isn't that, who are these people I'm even saying, who are these people in charge even given this job to do? How, you see what I'm saying here, that this is a complete and utter failure at the least.
It's an F for the federal government. A failure. When you lose 1/3 of the children who you take into your care, that is an F. And here's the thing, this has been going on for a decade in the program with zero oversight. And this is the problem. And Secretary Becerra says, move the kids, move the kids, move the kids. That is his performance measure. Move the kids 10 to 14 days, 10 to 14 days. So they're asking somebody like you to talk to a child who at the border has given the name of someone who they're supposed to be going to. And you're not talking to the kid to find out who the sponsor is. That's already been given to them en route. Your goal is only reunite the child with the sponsor. If they watch the America's Future video, they will see case manager Myra Moreno show a false ID. The person paid $200 to get the ID. And she's trying to tell all the management on our site at the Pomona Fairplex, because we worked together, to tell them, hey, this ID is false. And she was told, hey, Myra, your job is not to investigate the sponsor. Your job is to reunite the child with the sponsor. You need to know your place. Just like I was told, Tara, we only get sued if we keep kids in care too long. We don't get sued by traffickers. Are you clear? We don't get sued by traffickers. These are the federal employees running this program. And there's a thing called suspension and debarment. And I think that that's something that should be considered for anyone who's knowingly and purposefully engaged in the trafficking of children.
And I watched the very profound and troubling discussion you had with these other 3 whistleblowers. They're saying that they are the people bringing the children and putting them in the hands of God knows who. They're told, don't bring them back. Like, no matter what happens, do not bring them back.
Yes, do not bring them back. And sadly, because the sponsors don't know the kids, there's often times when the sponsor will call. It, like, transportation has already taken, like MVM, the transportation company, so Carlos, they've already picked up the child, and the child is en route to where they're going. So let's say they're going to Toledo. So the flight's on the way. And then the sponsor says, no, I don't want the kid. Then the Carlos was not allowed to bring the child back to Health and Human Services, not allowed to bring the child back into care of the government. The government would say, you wait there and we're going to find a place for you to take that child. And Carlos tells the terrible stories of how he's had to just then take children to what's sort of like homeless shelters and just leave them. And it's unconscionable that our country could treat children in this despicable manner.
And there's many reports, horrifying reports, of while this process in trafficking is happening, that many of the people that are transporting these children are hurting and sexually assaulting them.
Oh, yes. And that was a terrible revelation, because Jamie, I think you know my story, maybe some of your listeners don't. When the call went out to all federal employees to mobilize to help with the crisis at the border, to place these children with sponsors, we believed that we were putting all the children with their families. And we didn't understand that these evil people involved in the smuggling part, right? In the recruiting these children to come here, that they were actually, so many of the children have been sexually abused and so damaged along the route. And Carlos, on another interview, not on this one here with America's Future, but he talks about how he had this one little boy who wouldn't speak. And the whole time he was in the care of the transportation specialist, he wouldn't talk to anyone, and they tried all kinds of things to try to cheer him up and give him a lollipop and other things. And it wasn't until they handed him off at the airport to the sponsor that the sponsor said, well, he's not spoken because his sister was actually raped to death on the route. So he made it alive, but his sister did not. And the children, the stories that they've told us, will never, all of us, so many people who've come forward, they did it because they've heard the terrible stories from the children. And that's only from their home country to us. So this journey for a child is it's an unspeakable horror that many of them will never recover from without Jesus. So I just pray that these children have someone eventually who can really care for them and care for their emotional needs and their spiritual needs, because they've been severely abused in ways that are unspeakable.
It's profound and telling that you bring up our Savior, because his sternest warning and the scariest warning he gave was in regards to children and those who harm children. Something to do with it being better to chain your neck with a stone and throw yourself into the ocean rather than to harm a child. But Satan is very preoccupied with hurting children, and there's definitely a spiritual war happening right in front of our eyes. And maybe it's not that big of a surprise that the Biden administration is doing the duty, carrying out the duties very faithfully of certain entities. I think I'll leave it at that for now. Tara, look, I don't even know where to go here, just the whole thing. So, you know, I'm reading all your stuff, watching all your videos. So in terms of how the process works, you actually give a child into the hands of somebody. You would think that you're supposed to check later, you know, come, show up, hey, are you okay? What's going on here? You know, but they just do one wellness check, and the wellness check is just one call. And as you report, they make this one call. That's even if they do make a call, but they make one call. There's usually almost always no answer to the call, and then they just forget about it, and the child becomes a statistic. This is just, what word can I use? Unconscionable?
Yeah. There's no child welfare program on the planet that operates in this manner, meaning that I could have a child in my hands, and in 10 to 14 days, and you'll hear Myra even talk about how they eventually said, move the kid in 8 days, 8 days, 8 days, to give the child to a person that's never been seen. It's a phone conversation, and they're sending documents back and forth on an application on the phone called WhatsApp. And then the child is then given to a transportation person who doesn't know all of the history that we've heard, you know, doesn't know that the child's in debt bondage and has a $6,000 debt to pay to the cartel, right? And then the transportation person is delivering the child to this person, and they're handing them off at baggage claim in airports around the country. They're delivering them in large numbers to parking lots at Walmarts. So not only are they using Walmarts as facilities to hold the children, they're also saying, hey, well, Dallas is a central hub. Let's have a whole bunch of kids shipped to Dallas, and then everyone from around the area can drive there. Or let's go ahead and have a shipment into a huge parking lot in Woodbridge, Virginia, and then all the people in the DC metro area can come pick up kids there. Or we fly them into Reagan. That's a big thing. They'll fly a lot of kids into DCA, into an airport that's less than an hour from me. They have escorts coming in from all different companies, all different contractors bringing the children. They're meeting in baggage claim and doing a handoff.
You know, the Biden administration is literally involved in this process of providing children to child traffickers. You know, just even this Jeffrey Epstein thing, just the more you look into it, what kind of operation was being run there, how long he got away with it, how difficult it was to prosecute him, and every time that they tried, something strange happened. And then how powerful these people must be that this list, the client list, hasn't even been released, that they can actually get into a jail to silence someone. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, he committed suicide, I guess. But the more you look into that, you begin to understand what's going on. I'm bringing that up just in terms of this is all interconnected here. There's obviously there's an evil matrix going on here in terms of sex trafficking, child trafficking. You know, I can't help from thinking that at this very moment, there was just a situation, there was just a tragic, nightmarish crimes against humanity that happened where Hamas was beheading babies and putting babies into ovens and burning them alive. And the streets of the West are filled with tens and hundreds of thousands of people who are cheering this on. This is the, you know, the demons are being released from the pits of hell right now. And most of the world wants to stay blind. Tara, it's very interesting that a lot of the people watching this show right now have probably never even heard of this. But you would think that, you know, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, that are so concerned about inequality and rights, that they would touch on this. You would think that Rachel Maddow would touch on it, that Anderson Cooper would touch on it. You would think that the establishment media would touch on this, and there's just a deafening silence. What do you make of this?
Yeah, it's very sad that evil is able to survive in this way, that people will not discuss it. And they won't discuss it because there's so, you notice the Epstein list has never been made public. It's interesting. I think it's because it involves so many people, and, you know, people can say, oh, these things really aren't happening. Yet you may have seen just today, I'm trying to think which agency it was that actually busted a sex trafficking ring in the Washington, D.C. area that was servicing high-level government employees, high-level contractors. This was going on right in the Washington, D.C. area. Today, this story broke. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want it exposed that their ultimate plan that is behind so much of what's going on in schools now is to make a child believe that it's okay to be raped by an adult. And this is what's happening. People are going to try to spin it all different ways, but the bottom line is there are adults who want access to children for their personal pleasure. And from what many people in Hollywood have said, right, they were on Epstein's flights. They're powerful people, and they clearly do not want to shut this operation down. They've known about it for a decade, 10 years. They've trafficked these children for labor, for sex, and other unspeakable things. Now, no one would say that the New York Times is a right-wing leaning newspaper. I certainly don't. As a matter of fact, some people criticize me for praising one reporter. Her name is Hannah Dreier at the New York Times. She will talk about the labor trafficking of the children. She has written several incredible exposés, one very recently. I live in Virginia. We have a Tyson chicken processing plant. A little boy who was an unaccompanied minor was working with fake papers saying he was in his 20s on the overnight shift in this plant. And he got pulled into, his arm was pulled into one of these machines. And fortunately, somebody called 911 in time and they were able to airlift him out. But the veins, the major veins in his arms, you know, were torn open. And so he almost bled to death. Fortunately, he's alive today. Hannah Dreier chronicles this story and many others. I mean, this little boy survived. Many don't. You know, they're come here, they're put into labor, they're working on roofs. They're not qualified for that. And they fall off the roof and they die. I mean, they're delivering in New York City meals and other things. They're on bicycles in the middle of all of these cars and they get run over and killed. There are many children who have come across in this program who've died just in labor trafficking. But she will not talk about the sex trafficking. And that's something that, well, I'm sure no one at the New York Times wants her talking about that, but we need to hold the government accountable. We need to have the courage to look into the face of this evil and say, not on my watch, not on my watch. These are innocent little children. Carlos tells about even transporting infants. Infants. How can these children speak for themselves? They need your voice. They need your voice. So I would call on your listeners to get educated about this terrible subject. I wish I didn't know about it, but now that I do, you know, we need to stand up for the children. I've heard them screaming for their parents. I've watched these children have panic attacks, children who had to be put on suicide watch. They need our help. They're in crisis. And now 85,000 are gone. That's what HHS will admit to. 85,000 that they've just lost contact with.
You know, they just don't know what happened to them, you know.
Yeah. And my question would be, is why will they not turn over the list of who the sponsors are? Right? That would make sense. I mean, Jamie, if you were a sponsor and then suddenly the child that you sponsored has disappeared, well, why aren't we asking you, where is the child who we sent to your address? Jamie, where are they? But they won't do that. They will not release the list of names. And they claim the reason they won't do that is because most of the sponsors don't have legal presence. So they're not US citizens and they're not a permanent resident, nor do they have a visa. So they value the anonymity of the sponsor over the safety of the child. So if you were here illegally, Jamie, they would think that your right to be here illegally is more valuable than the safety of the child. So they wouldn't turn your name over to law enforcement saying, hey, we gave a child to Jamie and he can't account for the child that we gave. They'll never do that. So you're home free.
Children sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. Tara, we got to go to a sponsor break. I just want to sometimes make a comment about our sponsor breaks, because sometimes just these very heavy, tragic, heart-wrenching issues that we deal with, and sometimes I feel a little bit strange and uncomfortable going to a commercial and our sponsors, etc., because in no way do I ever want to minimize or trivialize any issue, but without our supporters, we wouldn't even be able to have a conversation. So I kind of just wanted to say that because I agonize over this often. We're going to take a sponsor break and be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Years ago, when I invented My Pillow, I was faced with every adversity you could think of. No retailers wanted to sell My Pillow. That's come full circle. Vendors took advantage of me, and I was copied by China. Well, by the grace of God, I was able to get through all that and learn from it. I have a passion to help other U.S. entrepreneurs, and that's why I created my new platform, mystore.com. We have hundreds of products from amazing entrepreneurs, and to celebrate, I'm going to put my pillows on mystore.com right now. You can get my standard My Pillows regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get my standard queen size, regular $79.98, now only $29.98. Or you can get my premium king size, regularly $89.98, now only $34.98. So go to mystore.com and use that promo code on your screen to get huge discounts on all my store products. Thank you and God bless.
And we are back with Tara Lee Rodas, an HHS whistleblower. Before we went for our break, Tara, we were saying about how these children have disappeared, who are they being left with, all of this unaccountability. One of your whistleblowers revealed that a gentleman's club was actually used as a drop-off site for migrant children. You know, my first question is, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And to the trailers surrounding that club. So again, this leads back to accountability and oversight. If someone were to just simply run the addresses, they would see that all of those addresses are not even homes. The addresses are places of business. The addresses are hotels. I have to give a big shout out to the Department of Homeland Security, Office of Inspector General. IG Kafari released a report stating that many of the migrants who were crossing the border, when they were looking into the data, they found that they were going to the same address. Like people had been released, like 100+ people had been released to one address. Well, that's the exact same thing that's happening with the children. They're being released to addresses that aren't even real homes. And so this is another tragedy of the system, that children are being placed in unsafe conditions, with unsafe people in unsafe places. There's no need for this to happen. The challenge is that HHS is not an investigative organization. They don't have law enforcement and investigators who are looking into the sponsors or the homes. So all the case manager does, right? They're told, move the child, move the child, move the child. So they're given that information from our great Border Patrol agents, and then they just call and make arrangements as quickly as possible to send the child there.
Well, Tara, Oscar, one of the whistleblowers, very brave guy, we're very grateful to him. Very scary things he revealed. He was talking about children crying while being handed into their sponsors' hands. I mean, I'm just thinking about this, that you have a child under your authority, and you're giving the child to some stranger, and the child is crying, begging not to be given to these people, and you're pushing the child, and Oscar into the hands of these people. And Oscar, he said that he had been threatened, and others are threatened for listening to a child, told not to leave, not to come back with the child. There's another report of a child on a phone during, I think it was a wellness check, where at least somebody answered something, but somebody was screaming help, and then when the authorities came, everything had been cleared out, everything had disappeared. Tell us a little bit about this, how the children are crying, begging not to be handed over, and they're still handed over, and that the people who are handing them over are being told, do not come back with them.
Yeah, they will be fired. They will be fired if they bring the children back. They are not allowed to bring the children back. And somebody has to just say, why would anybody put a policy like that in place if it's to care for the child? How could anybody say that? And why do they do that? Because they care more about the money on the contract. And that's the bottom line, is that people are so enamored by their paychecks. Some of these contractors are earning $100 million plus a month. $100 million. So, you know, they really do care about getting that check from the federal government. And so they tell their employees, you will not bring this child back. But I have to say, Deborah White, we deployed together to the Pomona Fairplex. She's a native Spanish speaker. My husband is from El Salvador and has the patience of Job. And so he taught me Spanish. So I'm a Spanish speaker. And she is the first one who overheard these case managers who had a brother and a sister, and the children were crying. And she was like, wait a minute, you know, what's happening here? And as we got involved, we learned the children were crying and upset because they didn't know who they were going to. They had debts to pay, and they were like, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. We have to get out of here, because they knew they had to start working to pay their debts. And so this is we've seen it with our own eyes. We've seen the children, and they're in crisis. They're not happy that, wow, I'm going to see my family. And sponsors who in mid-transportation are saying, I don't want the kid. And then HHS is saying, don't bring the child back. I mean, what kind of it's really, Jamie, had I not seen this with my own eyes, I could not believe what I'm telling you right now. But I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I've seen the children in crisis, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. And I just pray that your listeners that they will pray for the children, that they will, as hard as it's going to be, to look into these cases that are going on right now, and look into the fact that HHS at this very moment is trying to put in place rules that will make it easier to traffic the children. That's what they're trying to do with this new rule change. And so that's why, if everybody can go to that Truth Trench /defend the children and fill out the information, respond, that's a great thing that any person can do. We have until December 4th to reply, and the federal government has to read through every single one of those responses. And it will slow this process down. So that would be a really great thing for your listeners to do to help the children, because this process that's happening right now, no child should have to suffer this. No child should have to suffer in this way.
Well, when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Jean-Pierre find out about this, they're really going to set things right. We are very fortunate to have a producer by the name of Cyrus, who is on the front lines of fighting for human rights and for children and for women's rights. And a lot of respect to Annie, who really fights the fight, and one of the most genuine people I know on the planet. Annie, could you enter our discussion, please? Would you like to make a comment or ask Tara a question?
Well, sure. I appreciate the kind words, Jamie. As I was listening, Tara, as a former child bride who was sold at age 13, it's very hard to listen to what you're saying. And I first of all, thank you. It doesn't matter where the child is from. I was born and raised in Iran. It doesn't matter. A child is a child. And yes, I wish someone back then would protect me or even fight for me the way you are fighting for these kids today. But let me ask you this question, or at least this was a question kept popping in my head. is there any portion, any part, even the smallest, of the US government today that is in any shape or form supporting, helping, or doing anything about this?
So that is a very good question. And there are some people on Capitol Hill who have held hearings. They have proposed legislation called the Secure Act, where they are going to try to compel the government to find these 85,000 missing children. So there are some people on Capitol Hill. You may have seen that very recently, Josh Hawley flamed the director of Office of Refugee Resettlement, who is over this program, Robin Marcos, when she could answer no questions, as did Marsha Blackburn. These people come before Congress. These are the heads of these large programs running hundreds of billions of dollars, and could give no answers and could not explain how they intended to find the children. And then there are some very new partnerships that we're developing on the Senate side. And they're very, very serious about finding the children. And so there are some people on Capitol Hill who absolutely want to find the children. And people have asked me many times, why are you doing this? Why did you risk everything? Why did you, keep reporting until they threatened you with investigation and walked you off the site and took your badge? I said, well, there's 3 reasons, and there's 3 reasons only. And that is, 1, the children need to be rescued, right? I looked into their little faces, and they're God's children, and they're not for sale. So the children need to be rescued. And number 2, criminals need to be prosecuted. Criminals both inside and outside of the government. Our government knows that some of these people who are getting the children are high-level criminal actors. Criminals who are known for sex trafficking kids and labor trafficking kids. And I mean gang members like MS-13, 18th Street Gang, Russian Balkan crime syndicates. They know who these actors are. So why are they not going to knock on their door and give them a flight back to their country so they can go to prison, instead of using your taxpayer dollars to send a child to them who they can abuse? So 1, rescue the children. 2, prosecute the criminals. And 3 is either abolish or radically reform this program. So those are the 3 reasons why I'm in this fight, and why I will continue to be in the fight, and why there are more people who are coming to the fight. And there have been people way ahead of us in this fight. So, there have been, people like Laura Logan and Mary Flynn O'Neill. They've been out there on the front lines. Liz Crokin, you have Linz Piper Loomis. All these people have been out there fighting child trafficking for years. It's just that I didn't know it existed until June of 2021, when I reported the first case with my colleagues. So there are people out there, and there are some people in the federal government who want to do something. It's just very hard to get traction and get a consensus among a lot of people who are willing to stand up and say, you know what, we really do need to go after the kids, and we really need to hold HHS accountable.
Thank you for answering that question. And you already gave the testimony, but if you don't mind me emphasizing on the part of children, yes, they need to be protected. They need to be safe. They need to be, that there shouldn't even be a phrase of they need to be rescued, because they should never be endangered in the first place. Right. But I just want to add that you said something earlier that touched me deeply again, and you're correct. I was 13 when I was sold. I was 15 when I was, I escaped the country made my way through proper channels without jumping over borders. When I was 18, I made my way to America. I am literally 1 month short of turning 40, and I didn't heal and I didn't recover until I was saved by Jesus.
Yes.
And that was as recent as 2017. So thank you for what you do, and we will pray for you, and we're always here for you.
Well, thank you so much. And I am so sorry that you had to go through that. And I appreciate you being willing to share your story, because I think a lot of people don't know that young girls are sold at the age of 13 to people who will abuse them. And so thank you for having the courage to share your story, and then to share that for all those years, you know, you suffered. And I think that's the thing that to me is so overwhelming, is that how long will these children suffer? And how long will it be before, you know, somebody comes to them with the gospel and says, you know, one day all things are going to be new, and to give them hope that they can live another day. Hearing Carlos, Ariana share some of the stories of the children who tried to commit suicide because they didn't want, so they made it to the border, but they were so abused along the route, they didn't want to go and suffer more. And it's a terrible, terrible situation that we have put the children in, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. And so more people need to see the evil that's truly going on. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is a humanitarian issue. And this is a God versus evil issue. This is pure evil. And it just so happens that this administration is allowing it to flourish with zero oversight. And I do think it is important to note that one of the biggest busts early on in this program was in 2014. So it was under the Obama-Biden administration when they first learned the sophisticated trafficking network that these traffickers were using to bring these children here, to keep them captive, to threaten them, to threaten their families, to take their paychecks. It's not like they don't know. They do know. And then the question would be, well, then why, as soon as the administration took office, did they relax all the vetting rules, take out background checks? If Jamie was the sponsor, they wouldn't allow the case manager to say, oh, well, how many other people are living in your dwelling? And are any of them sponsoring too? Not even supposed to ask that question. So nobody can claim that they did not know.
Well, I will answer your question of they knew, so the question is why. And with that, I hand it over to Dr. Glazov. The answer to your question is in one of Dr. Glazov's best books ever, United in Hate.
Wow.
The Unholy Alliance is why.
Yeah, and it's so sad.
Thank you so much, Annie. Thank you for sharing your story. And in terms of the last part of your story, in terms of healing and salvation, we say praise Jesus. And our Lord told us that whenever 2 or 3 people are gathered in my name, that he is here with us at this moment, as he always is. Tara, we got to go, but just very quickly, please. A lot of people on the edge of their seat right now. They want to get involved. They want to help. You mentioned a couple things. Let's just stress those things right now. So first of all, everybody can go to Tara Lee Rodas at Twitter, for example. You can find her there. And Tara, just please very quickly tell people where they can go and what they can do specifically to make a change.
Yes. Okay. So pinned on my Twitter is the America's Future. Where did the children go? And you can listen to the people directly tell their stories. These are other whistleblowers telling their stories about working with the children. Then also right under that is Truth Trench. And it's called Truth Trench / Defend the Children. And it will, all you have to do is click that link. It opens up to a page and you can literally just go through the comments and copy and paste them into the Federal Register. And that's what we're asking people to do. And that is a great call to action. And it can stop this rule change that HHS is trying to do to make it easier to traffic the children. So we want to stop them, and anything that you can do to help will be greatly, greatly appreciated.
And Tara, we also know and can just imagine your own personal journey in all of this, and everything that you have gone through and are going through to take this stand. So thank you for being one of God's soldiers and one of God's angels walking the planet right now. We love you so much. Keep up the battle. You're in our thoughts and prayers. And hope you'll come back on the Glazov Gang soon.
Yes, well, I'd love to. And remember, there's a whole army of whistleblowers forming. So please definitely pray that more will have the courage to come forward. But we've got 5 incredible people who are out there on the front lines. And thank you, Jamie, and to the whole Glazov gang for, keeping this in front of your public. I really sincerely appreciate it. The kids need it. So thank you.
And thank you, Tara. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining the Glazov Gang this evening. Tara Lee Rodas at Twitter. Go there and you'll see all the things that you can do to help. Make sure you're subscribed to our Rumble channel, because our YouTube experience with all the censors and Stalinist oversight is a catastrophe. Subscribe to our Rumble channel and press instant notifications. We'll see you soon. Good night.